I was not supposed to feel this much for Mary Bennet. And yet somehow, in just a few minutes, Tom Haywood turned her entire world upside down, and mine with it, because this is not just a romance. This is what happens when someone finally sees you and you don't know how to survive it. It starts so quietly that you almost miss it. No grand entrance, no dramatic music, just Mary, still observant, always slightly outside of everything. And that's the first thing you need to understand. Mary Bennet is used to being overlooked. Not ignored completely, but never chosen, never felt. She exists in the background of her own life, watching everyone else be desired, be noticed, be loved. And then Tom Haywood walks into that space, and he does something dangerous. He pays attention. Not the kind of attention that is loud or performative, not the kind that tries to impress a room. No, his attention is specific, focused, almost unsettling, the kind that makes you feel like you've been studied, understood, without ever asking to be, and you can see it happen in real time. Mary doesn't know what to do with it, because for someone like her, attention is not comforting, it's disorienting. She's built her entire identity around being the one who stands slightly to the side, the one who fills the silence, not the one who becomes it. So when Tom looks at her, really looks at her, it doesn't feel romantic at first. It feels like exposure. And this is where the tension begins, because Tom isn't rushing anything. He's not overwhelming her with charm or declarations. In fact, he almost does the opposite. He moves carefully, thoughtfully, like he knows that Mary is not someone you can approach with force. You have to earn her attention the same way she's been quietly earning everyone else's her whole life. And then comes that shift, that subtle, almost invisible shift. Mary starts to respond. Not in big, obvious ways, not yet, but in the smallest details. Her pauses last a little longer. Her voice softens in ways she doesn't notice. Her defenses don't disappear, but they hesitate. And that hesitation, that's everything, because it means something is changing, and Tom sees it. That's the part that really got me. He doesn't just notice Mary, he notices how she's changing because of him. And instead of taking advantage of that, instead of pushing further, he slows down even more. Like he's giving her space to feel it without pressure. And suddenly this isn't just a connection anymore. It's a quiet understanding forming between two people who are both holding back, but for completely different reasons. Mary is holding back because she's afraid she's not enough. Tom is holding back because he already knows she is, and that imbalance, that emotional gap between what she believes and what he sees, that's where all the intensity lives, because every word between them starts to carry weight. Every glance feels intentional. Every moment feels like it could tip into something deeper, but never quite does, not yet. And then it happens. A line. A simple line. But the way he says it, it changes everything, because for the first time, it doesn't feel like polite conversation anymore. It feels personal, direct, almost vulnerable. And Mary freezes, not because she doesn't understand what's happening, but because she understands it too well. This is the moment where everything could open up or fall apart completely. Because once you realize someone sees you, really sees you, there's no going back to being invisible again. So the question is, what happens when Mary Bennet is finally seen and she's not ready for what that means? And this is where things stop being safe. Because once that line is crossed, once Mary realizes that Tom is not just being kind, not just being polite, but actually choosing to see her, everything inside her starts to shift in a way she cannot control. You can feel it, that quiet panic, because this is new territory for her. And not the exciting kind, the kind that feels like standing on the edge of something with no idea how far the fall is. Mary has spent her entire life understanding the rules, the invisible structure of society, who gets chosen, who gets overlooked, and more importantly, why. She has made peace with her place in that system, or at least she thought she had. But Tom doesn't follow those rules. That's what makes him dangerous, because instead of reinforcing everything Mary believes about herself, he starts to undo it, piece by piece, moment by moment, and he doesn't even seem to realize he's doing it. Every time he listens to her, really listens, it disrupts her expectations. Every time he speaks to her, like her thoughts matter, like her presence matters, it chips away at the version of herself she has carefully constructed. And Mary doesn't melt into that. She resists it. Not openly, not dramatically, but in the way she pulls back just slightly when things get too real, in the way she deflects, redirects, hides behind composure. Because if she accepts what Tom is offering, then she has to confront something much bigger than him. She has to confront the possibility that she has been wrong about herself all along. And that's terrifying. So what does she do? She looks for reasons to doubt him. Not because he's given her any, but because it feels safer to believe that this isn't real than to accept that it is. And this is where the emotional tension becomes almost unbearable, because from Tom's side, everything is so clear. He's not playing games. He's not testing her. He's not waiting for the right moment in the traditional sense. His feelings are already there, steady, grounded, growing stronger with every interaction. But Mary can't see that, or maybe she refuses to. Because if she lets herself believe it, even for a second, then she risks losing something she's never even had before. And then comes the shift in energy. The outside world starts creeping in. Other people, other expectations, other voices that remind Mary exactly where she stands in society and where she should stand. And suddenly, Tom is no longer just Tom. He becomes a question, a complication, a risk. Because now it's not just about how he sees her, it's about how everyone else might see them, and you can feel her retreat. Not completely, not yet, but enough to create distance, enough to make things uncertain again, and Tom notices that too. Of course he does, and here's where it gets even more intense, because instead of reacting with frustration, instead of pulling away or demanding clarity, he does something much quieter. He adjusts, he softens his approach even more. He gives her space, but not absence. He stays present, but not overwhelming. And that kind of patience, that kind of emotional awareness, it only makes things worse for Mary. Because now she has nothing to push against. No arrogance, no indifference, no cruelty, just sincerity. And that's the one thing she doesn't know how to handle. Because sincerity demands honesty in return. And Mary is not ready to be honest. Not about what she feels, not about what she wants, and definitely not about how much Tom is starting to matter to her. So instead, she hesitates, and that hesitation creates a crack. A small one at first, but enough for doubt to slip in, enough for misunderstandings to begin forming, not from what is said, but from what isn't. Because in a connection like this, silence is never just silence. It becomes interpretation, it becomes assumption, it becomes distance. And the worst part, both of them start to feel it, but neither of them fully understands it yet. So now we're left with something fragile, something real, something that could become everything, but is slowly being pulled apart by fear, timing, and the things they're both too afraid to say out loud. And the question starts to shift. It's no longer, do they feel something? That's obvious now. The real question is, how long can something this delicate survive? When neither of them is brave enough to hold on to it. And this is where everything starts to hurt. Not in a loud, dramatic way, but in that slow, sinking way where you can feel something slipping. And no one is stopping it. Because now the connection between Mary and Tom isn't just unspoken, it's misunderstood. And that changes everything. Mary begins to retreat further into herself. But this time it's not just hesitation, it's self-protection. She starts rewriting what's happening between them, convincing herself that she imagined it, that she misread him, that she let herself believe something that was never really there, because that version of reality feels safer. Safer than admitting that someone like Tom could actually care for someone like her. So she creates distance in her tone, in her responses, in the way she avoids those moments that once felt charged with something unnameable. And from the outside, it almost looks like indifference, but it's not indifference. It's fear disguised as control. And Tom feels that shift immediately. This is where it gets unbearable because Tom doesn't stop caring. He doesn't lose interest. If anything, his feelings deepen, but now they're met with uncertainty instead of quiet connection. And uncertainty is a different kind of pain because now he has to question something that once felt effortless. He starts wondering if he overstepped, if he misread her, if the connection he felt was one-sided, and this is the moment where everything could have been saved if either of them had just said what they were actually feeling, but they don't. Instead, they both start reading between the lines. And there are no lines. Mary interprets his restraint as withdrawal. Tom interprets her distance as disinterest. And just like that, something real begins to fracture, not because it wasn't strong enough, but because it was never spoken out loud. And then the outside pressure tightens even more. Expectations return, social roles reassert themselves. The idea of appropriate matches starts hovering over everything again, reminding Mary of the world she belongs to, the world where someone like Tom is not meant to choose someone like her. And she believes it. That's the part that breaks you. Because even now, even after everything, Mary still thinks she is the exception, the one who doesn't get chosen. So when things begin to fall apart, she doesn't question it. She accepts it. Almost like she was expecting it all along, and Tom doesn't fight it the way you want him to. Not because he doesn't care, but because he respects her space, because he thinks stepping back is what she needs, because he believes that if she wanted him to stay, she would say so. But she doesn't, and that silence becomes final. Conversations that once felt full now feel strained. Moments that once lingered now end too quickly. The ease between them disappears, replaced by something careful, almost formal, and it's painful to watch because you know exactly what's happening. They're losing each other, not in one big moment, but in 100 small ones, a glance that doesn't last, a sentence that isn't finished, a feeling that isn't confessed. And then comes the moment that changes the entire energy, the kind of moment that doesn't feel dramatic at first, but leaves everything different after it passes. A decision is made, not out of clarity, but out of confusion, not out of truth, but out of assumption. And suddenly the possibility of them doesn't just feel uncertain, it feels like it's ending. And neither of them fully understands why. Because nothing happened, no betrayal, no rejection, no clear reason to walk away, just silence, just fear, just two people standing on opposite sides of the same feeling and choosing not to cross the distance. And that's what makes it so devastating, because this was never about whether they loved each other. It was about whether they could believe in that love enough to risk everything for it. And right now, they're both choosing not to. So the question becomes even more painful than before. What happens when you lose something that was never fully yours, but felt like it could have been everything? And just when it feels like everything is already lost, this is where it gets worse. Because now, they're not just apart, they're pretending it doesn't matter. Mary returns to what she knows: composure, distance, control. She moves like someone who has already decided the ending of her own story, convincing herself that this, whatever it was with Tom, was never meant for her. And the most painful part, she almost does it successfully. She starts speaking like the old Mary again, careful, measured, slightly detached, as if those moments never happened, as if she didn't feel her entire world shift just by being seen. But there's something off, because once you've been seen like that, you can't fully go back. And it shows in the way her voice lingers just a second too long when his name is mentioned, in the way she avoids certain spaces, not because she doesn't care, but because she cares too much, in the way her confidence feels rehearsed. And Tom sees all of it, but now he's different too, not colder, not indifferent, just quieter. There's a weight to him now, a hesitation that wasn't there before, because he tried gently, carefully, honestly, and somehow it still wasn't enough. So now he holds back, not out of pride, but out of self-preservation. And this is where the tension becomes almost unbearable, because they are still drawn to each other. That hasn't changed. If anything, the distance has made it stronger. Every shared space feels charged. Every accidental glance feels like it carries everything they didn't say. Every conversation with someone else feels like avoidance. And then comes the moment, the one that shifts everything again. Mary is confronted, not directly, not aggressively, but in a way that forces her to face something she has been avoiding this entire time: her own feelings. Because up until now, she has been reacting, deflecting, protecting herself from the possibility of being hurt, but she hasn't actually named what she feels. And when she finally does, it's overwhelming, because it's not small, it's not casual, it's not something she can quietly set aside and forget. It's real, deep, unavoidable, and suddenly all those moments she tried to dismiss come rushing back, not as confusion, but as clarity. The way he listened, the way he noticed, the way he made her feel like she wasn't standing outside of life anymore, but right in the center of it. And now she understands it wasn't just attention, it was care, and she let it slip away. That realization, it hits hard because now the fear isn't, what if I'm not enough? Now it's, what if I've already lost the one person who believed that I was? And for the first time, Mary wants to move forward instead of stepping back. But here's the problem. Timing. Because just as she begins to understand her own feelings, just as she starts to gather the courage to face them, Tom has already started letting go. Not completely, but enough. Enough to protect himself, enough to accept what he believes is her choice, enough to start convincing himself that whatever he felt, he needs to move on from it. And this is where everything becomes almost unbearable to watch. Because now they've switched places, Mary is ready, Tom is retreating, Mary wants to speak, Tom has stopped expecting her to, and every moment they miss each other now feels heavier than before. Because this time, it's not confusion keeping them apart. It's timing. And timing is cruel in a way nothing else is. Because even when two people finally understand what they feel, it doesn't mean they'll get the chance to say it. And now we're standing right at the edge of everything. One step forward could fix it. One moment of honesty could change everything. But will it happen? Or will they let the most important thing they've ever felt slip away simply because they realized it too late? And this is where everything finally breaks. Not quietly, not slowly, but all at once. Because there comes a point where feelings like this can't stay hidden anymore. They either come out or they destroy everything in silence. And Mary has reached that point. You can feel it in the way she moves now. There's urgency where there used to be hesitation. There's emotion where there used to be control, because she knows. She finally knows what Tom means to her. And it's not small. It's not something she can reason away or bury under logic. It's everything. And the realization hits her with a kind of force she's never experienced before, because this isn't just about loving someone. It's about realizing that someone made her feel seen, valued, alive in a way she didn't think was possible for her. And she almost lost it. No, she did lose it. Because while Mary was busy protecting herself from the possibility of being hurt, Tom was slowly convincing himself that he had already been rejected, and now he's gone. That's the moment that changes everything, because absence does what confusion never could. It brings clarity. Suddenly, there are no distractions, no social expectations clouding her thoughts, no need to guess, interpret, or analyze. Just one undeniable truth. She loves him, and the way that realization lands, it's overwhelming, because now every moment they shared replays in her mind, but differently. Clearer, sharper, painfully obvious. The way he looked at her, the way he listened, the way he made space for her when no one else ever did. And the worst part, he was never unclear. He never hid what he felt. She just couldn't believe it. And now she has to live with that. Unless she does something she has never done before. Unless she steps out of the role she's been playing her entire life. The quiet observer, the one who waits, the one who lets life happen around her, and actually chooses something for herself, chooses him. And this is the moment that defines Mary Bennet, because for the first time, this is not about whether someone will choose her, it's about whether she will choose herself enough to fight for what she wants. So she moves, not perfectly, not confidently, but honestly. And that honesty, it changes everything, because when she finally faces Tom, when she finally speaks without deflection, without fear, without hiding behind composure, it's not polished or poetic, it's real, and that's what makes it powerful. She doesn't just confess her feelings. She acknowledges her mistakes, the doubt, the hesitation, the way she pushed him away because she didn't believe she deserved what he was offering, and that vulnerability, that's the moment Tom has been waiting for, even if he didn't realize it, because all this time, he wasn't looking for perfection. He wasn't looking for certainty. He was looking for truth, and now he has it. And you can feel the shift instantly. That distance that once felt impossible, it collapses. All the misunderstandings, all the silence, all the moments they spent apart trying to protect themselves, they finally make sense, because it was never about a lack of feeling. It was about fear. And now that the fear is gone, there's nothing left holding them back. And when they come together, when they finally stop hesitating, stop second guessing, stop reading between lines that were never there, it feels earned. It feels real, because this wasn't easy. This wasn't instant. This was two people learning slowly and painfully how to believe in something they had never experienced before. And that's why that moment hits so hard, because it's not just about romance, it's about transformation. Mary is no longer standing outside of her own life. She's right in the center of it. And Tom, he never wanted anything more than to stand there with her. And suddenly, everything makes sense. Every glance, every pause, every almost moment that didn't happen when it should have, it all leads here to this one truth. Sometimes the most powerful love stories aren't about finding someone else. They're about finally believing that you are worthy of being found. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. So the real question isn't whether Mary and Tom were meant to be. It's this: how many people let something this real slip away simply because they couldn't believe it was theirs?